Star Trek Discovery, Season 5, Episode 9, Lagrange Point, where Discovery, as it nears its conclusion, its final conclusion, is, in true Discovering fashion, just steaming, full steam ahead. Can you tell I don't write scripts for these? In just an aggressive fineness, you know? It's just aggressively fine. Yeah, which means two things, right? What do I mean by that? Well, first, the episode was fine. You know, story's good, like serviceable at least, but that sounds like a disservice. You know, it's good. You can sit back, enjoy it. You know, it's not great. It's hardly revolutionary. That's the first thing, right? Is a good review. Let's put some positivity. Let's look at all this beautiful starships. The second thing with like fineness, right, is that it doesn't super suck you in. It doesn't super engage you. So at least for me, but like at this point, what it means is every single little minor thing that's not quite right or doesn't quite make sense or could have quite been done better, you notice. Every single one. And it takes you out a little bit, and it goes chip, 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 chip. So in true Discovery fashion, yeah, this was fine. Hardly revolutionary, weirdly filler for like the second to last episode, I feel. Some very odd choices, but by and large, fine. Not a whole lot to talk about the fineness, but a lot of infinite little nitpicks. What do we got? I mean, next, I'm not the kind of person who gets excited at, like, the mystery of it's some white void. Like, I don't know. It could literally be anything in there, so what's the point of speculating? Interesting that it's reminiscent of, like, the white void room we've seen and introduced in this season. So I would not be surprised at all if that was set up for what's, like, you know, this actual thing. Also, honestly, the only thing in my head is the complaint about how they've quote-unquote hidden the progenitors technology, but I wanted to wait a little bit to get into that at least. We got Saru back, which is great. More Saru and Tarina. Saru, of course, getting back from his important diplomatic mission of promoting Hocus Pocus 2, as I mentioned in an earlier stream. He's been absent because Doug Jones is in Hocus Pocus 2, and at the time of filming, he was apparently doing a lot of promotion for that, and so the Discovery team was like, yeah, we'll work around your schedule, like, we can do a lot more stuff in Season 6, I guess. Whoops. But yeah, no, it's good to see him back. I mean, he's definitely one of the stronger characters of the season. I want to call them resolutions. I think we had resolutions to a fair few plot points. Or arcs, like Adira's total lack of anything other than being like a nervous mess. You know, we have them volunteering on the mission and stuff. We have Captain Raynor. I guess we're setting up for him eventually sitting in the chair. You know, it's kind of like you actually can still be a captain dealing with insecurities he apparently had. But it all kind of felt underwhelming, but also, I don't know, kind of a weird way to take Raynor, for example, where apparently his pacing is making everyone nervous until it's just like, it's okay, sir, you can sit down in the chair. Like, we all trust you. I'm like, first off, I feel like Michael Burnham paces a lot, but besides the point, what if he's just got, like, a bad back, Tilly, you know? Like, Captain Archer didn't like his chair either. It was just uncomfortable. Quite frankly, the chair looks uncomfortable. I don't know, Adira's lost me at this point. There's no more time in the series, but Adira needed a lot more time to get me back into that character. And so if there was gonna be a Season 6, I'd be glad they're actually giving them back a lot of the, like, competence, honestly, that they had in Season 3. I'd be upset that they are still giving it back. Like, the end of that arc would be we catch up with Season 3 Adira. But yeah, it was just kind of fine. There were a few times even, which felt really weird for the penultimate episode where, like, I just had to go check my phone because I was getting a bit bored. Like, Michael, is now really the time to be going over this with Book. Like, problem now, science later, Burnham. And it how long was this episode? 46 minutes. So this was a standard length episode. I mean, it's a little short nowadays, but it's like you could broadcast this at like TNG almost, but it still felt like it had to fill a lot of time. Almost the question becomes, why have the Breen capture the artifact at all if it's not really going to mean anything? And you have to do so much like hand wavy to kind of get the artifact back. Like this massive, imposing dreadnought we've established it's got like a Death Star size hole in the back of its shields, which anyone could exploit. I will give them credit that it was clearly like damaging. It's not just a fly through sort of thing. But still, like the fact that a hole is there is weird at all. You did kind of the obvious of, like you can beat a Breen dreadnought by just flying into the shuttle bay, which felt obvious, but you kind of assume that like you can't do it because that, I don't know, that shield or something, you'll bounce off, you'll get destroyed. But I guess if you just fly a big enough starship, which quite frankly a lot of Federation starships are, you know, short and long, you can do it, and you'll take out a significant chunk of the crew, including what appears to be the equivalent of a bridge, because this is where like all the command is always happening in this shuttle bay, as well as getting rid of all of the supplies on the Breen ship and killing everybody inside it. Because yes, it also felt weird to me that Burnham's plan just casually involves murdering what has to be the majority of the Breen crew here. It was fine, but part of the reason it was fine is it had a lot of these little things, you know? So I think I'm really just going to get into the scene by scene. We can talk about how awfully, quote-unquote, hidden the Progenitor's tech is, and then we can get our little positivities mixed in with all of the nitpicks. Honestly, a part of me is glad that Discovery is ending because it's just such a hard one for me to review. Like a few times, if this wasn't the final season, I've debated if I even want to review it, because the reviews are always come off a little like more negative than I felt, even if I didn't particularly like the episode. But it's just kind of like a nitpick sort of thing, and there's not much to theorize, there's not much to talk about, they're always short. But hey, you know, it's the last one, we might as well come to completion. But, I mean, this doesn't give me too much faith for the last episode, because it really feels like not a lot happened in the episode, which it probably should have. Like, I guess on paper a lot happened, it just really didn't feel like it. And we'll get to some of those points later. But as I mentioned, Saru coming back, that's nice. What do we have? We really... Like, there was this whole arc that didn't really do anything, where Saru volunteers, and he thinks Tarina, you know, doesn't want him to volunteer, because it could be a suicide mission. And he thinks that she tries to avoid that by providing a list of diplomats, which is what Saru is. And Tarina thinks that Saru might potentially be hesitant on some subconscious level and not volunteer for a mission he is a good choice for. And the resolution is they just talk to each other and go, oh yeah, well, we were wrong. Which, to be fair, is how, like, most romantic-related, like, plots should be resolved in television. But it's not particularly entertaining either. Of course, this is why we write the bad ones, but that's not an excuse to write the bad ones. Like, there's... I guess you needed Saru to do something. But, you know, there's just kind of this vibe that they're struggling to fill maybe 10, 15 minutes of this episode. Well, I mean, I guess we are only a 10-episode season, and that's pretty standard for Trek nowadays. All right, I think I might have bid my time enough. Oh no, there's one more thing. It's been a while since I've given this complaint, but I think it's just because we've had animation for so long. Why does the CGI not reflect what is actually happening in the story? I gave this for Strange New Worlds so many times, and I don't understand it. Because the CGI people surely have the story notes, and they can't change fundamentally that often every time. Because what Discovery is doing in this frame, as you probably can hear the dogs barking in the background, is it's stuck in orbit of this black hole on the left here. But struggling to get the gravity out, right? You know, I'm on board, whatever. This is a binary system of black holes. We'll come back to that. And so it's using the gravity of this other black hole to help pull it along. It's basically it's adding to the power of the engines, just the pull of this black hole. Also on board, you can totally do this. This isn't what's happening in the picture at all, though. Like, if you wanted that to be happening, Discovery would be back here, and they'd be going, like, up towards the screen. Or the black hole would be basically kind of like where we are. This black hole is actively preventing Discovery from escaping this black hole. And it really bothers me. Even if you don't have, like, a grasp of orbital mechanics, even if you have, like, the awful understanding of black holes that they suck everything in and you can't escape, which I guess is technically true, but, you know, they're oft misunderstood, like, you'd understand this black hole would pull this way, and this black hole would pull this way, and this force isn't helping. It's a minor thing, but I honestly might not even say anything if it hasn't come up in, like, basically every Strange New World shot as well. And it was weird as well. The CGI, Jack's Law, hello, welcome to my nitpick fest. The CGI, was it just me? This shot is good, right? But a lot of it felt kind of dodgy or off. Like when Burnham and Book were taking their helmets off, you could kind of feel the motion tracking. It didn't feel up to the standard of even the rest of the show, which was weird. I wonder if maybe there was a rushed thing going on. Like maybe because of COVID and stuff, you know, all the studios were kind of squeezed. They couldn't really produce content. Well, no, we're well after COVID. Like, I was wondering, maybe there was a rush to get this out, but no, we're way past COVID. That was the last season. Even season 3, I don't remember. Yeah, I'm RDY to talk shit as well. This was like they don't know what they are doing or they don't care. It was meh. I'm not gonna say it's bad. It was a fine episode. Like, it does everything an episode of television needs to. It didn't excel in any way. And it had, like, minor fumbles kind of along the whole way. And again, I've said at the start, the problem with fineness is if you're not engaged, at least for me, you'll notice when the things don't really click as much. Whereas if you're actively engaged with something and something doesn't quite click, you might not notice it, or you'd even be just more likely to be like, whatever. If it's like this, you know, for example, this VFX doesn't quite line up with what's happening on screen. Right. Okay, you're the progenitors. You've got this technology which you want to hide for some reason. Ooh. Okay, we'll come back to this, but let's just assume you're progenitors and you want to hide a technology, right? So they've placed it right there at the Lagrange point between these two black tubes. I don't remember. L2, L1. Lagrange point. It's not L4, is it? L1. I was right the first time. Should have trusted myself. They've placed it at L1 between these two black holes. So it'll stay literally right there forever. Don't worry about it. Orbital mechanics is complicated. It will stay there forever. A black hole is interesting. You know, kind of on its own. That's an interesting thing. A binary black hole system is quite interesting, right? That's quite interesting, especially as I might expect they'd fall in and collapse on each other, but that's that is something that is worth investigating. Like 2 black holes in a binary orbit. I don't know how rare that is, but that's got to be pretty darn rare. I think you can get black holes with other things, which is rare, but that's rare. Like how do you get in this situation? Because like 2 black holes that would cross each other, you would expect one to absorb the other. It's probably difficult to get them into this binary situation. A primordial black hole is remarkably interesting. A primordial black hole, if you don't know, because but probably, why would you? A primordial black hole is, at this day and age, hypothetical. I don't know if it's still hypothetical in Star Trek, but it's a hypothetical black hole that, as the name implies, they formed basically immediately after the Big Bang, very soon after. And so nowadays, when a black hole forms, it's because a star collapses in on itself. So basically, black holes nowadays are kind of confined to certain sizes because they have to have been a star at some point. There's some, like, I think we're not even really sure how some other like the supermassive black forms at the center of galaxies. This is the point. It's all related. But what's important is that primordial black holes are so remarkable that at this point they're theoretical. A lot of them wouldn't have survived if they're too small, because, they'll radiate out their mass. But the other thing is they could get truly massive, these primordial black holes. So they could have survived. But it's remarkably interesting. Nowadays, this would be like... This would be incredible to discover a primordial black hole. I might even go so far to say revolutionary to like confirm that these actually existed, because it would answer some unanswered questions. Like, we have black holes that seem to be too big for their age and just too young in general, and we don't understand how that happened, and primordial black holes are basically an option. So that's quite remarkably interesting. A binary system of primordial black holes may perhaps be the most interesting thing in the entire galaxy if it were to exist. Like, even another planet with life on it might be less interesting from a scientific standpoint than a binary system of 2 primordial black holes. This is remarkably interesting. Not a single civilization after the progenitors, save, of course, the 6 scientists who discovered the technology, ever appears to have investigated this system. And they try and explain it away. They say if we were any farther, we wouldn't be able to see it. Okay, but if you were a hypothetical science ship investigating this binary primordial black hole system, which you would probably spend it, like, bare minimum a few weeks doing, just, orbiting these things, you'd probably send, like, some probes and stuff, or, you'd do that sort of thing. And if I were to send a probe to investigate these 2 black holes that, we've established, it's in a gravitationally turbulent area, which brings into question how the Lagrange point was stable anyway, but it's a gravitationally turbulent area. These probes might not last too long in orbit. I think the place I would put a probe, and I'm no expert, is smack dab at Lagrange 1 right there, because you can sit there forever. The existence of the artifact proves you can sit there forever, in between these 2 things, and observe them simultaneously. And you would probably notice if there was something else there when you were doing so. But I'm not done, because before those scientists came, there was not an object there. There was this thing. This thing was sitting between those 2 black holes, and you would probably notice that thing if you ever came here to investigate the most interesting thing in the galaxy. The Iconians never bothered, the Cardassians, the Federation, the Bajorans evidently never bothered to just check out this or even notice that this, they might be saying it's black holes, so they wouldn't emit light, so you wouldn't know anything's there. Except you would, because you'd see the gravity, you'd see the gravitational waves. Like, we're talking millennia here. And roughly, again, if you go, like, the entire history of the galaxy, I mean, we're almost implying that this has been here for the entire life of the galaxy. I'm choosing to believe they moved these primordial black holes. It is almost a beacon. Hello, look at me. There is something interesting here. Which is why I come back to that little moment of pause I had, right? Where I said, let's assume for a moment the progenitors are wanting to hide this object. Because this is so conspicuous. Like, okay, what do we know about the progenitors? They seeded all life in the galaxy. They somehow seem to know, or at least prepare for the fact that they might not be around when that life evolved. And they want that life to succeed, reach out to the stars, meet each other, and be, you know, just generally get along. So if I'm the progenitor, right? I'm the progenitors, and I want to leave a message for these species. One thing I do is, you know, scatter a message across all their DNA, so they have to come together to assemble it. That was the chase. If I was an alien species trying to get the attention of a hypothetical advanced civilization way down the line, because remember, they also wanted to say, hello, we exist. If I had the capability to, what I would probably do is get a bunch of primordial black holes, slap them together, and put something in the middle of it. Because that is a beacon. Hello, if you are capable of looking into the stars, traveling amongst them, you will notice this and you will come immediately here because it's remarkably interesting. On the one hand, if this actually gets revealed to be the resolution that the progenitors wanted this to be found, you know, then this setup makes sense. On the other hand, you still have to get past the fact that literally no civilization in the history of the galaxy has ever discovered this artifact until 800 years ago. Which is a stretch. It's possible maybe you could use this without moving it, but it does seem to be remarkably easy to move. Oh, and also, let's remember that literally the instant the Breen appeared in this system, they had immediately located the artifact, established a tractor beam lock, and tractored that thing into their hull instantaneously. They didn't even have time to, like, report that they had found the artifact before they had found the artifact, had a lock, and brought it into their shuttle bay. So evidently, it's not actually that hidden. That's my rant over. Do you know what you should do if you want to hide something in space? Just put it somewhere. Do you want to know what the most hidden thing in the Star Trek universe is right now? The Sword of Kahless, which is just somewhere in the Delta Quadrant. If you wanted it hidden, genuinely, find somewhere that's not particularly in between any two planets or, like, systems that aren't even really that habitable, and just, like, plonk it there and write the coordinates down. You'll never find that thing. Even this thing, you'd never find that thing. The odds of stumbling upon that are, like, 0. I choose. It's so conspicuous, I choose to believe that the progenitors, like, literally set up a sign that said neat tech here. It's just, now my complaint is that nobody found it, right? I want that to be clear before anyone comes back next week and goes, oh, they actually wanted it to be found. I'm like, yes, that's my point. We've spent enough time on this. Actually, no, they did fix something, right? After we did a rant. The one Breen person, their dreadnought is transwarping in. And I don't know if they established this. Maybe I missed it. But last episode, I really complained that the location of the two black holes, like this technology, was a 6-hour warp trip from Deep Space Nine. But not necessarily, right? Because if these dreadnoughts can transwarp, heck, a 6-hour trip almost implies it's in like Andromeda or something. Like, didn't Voyager take maybe a minute or two to get halfway across the galaxy like through a Borg transwarp conduit? I don't have nearly as much of a grasp at how fast transwarp is, but no, this thing could like basically be anywhere. And we don't know anything about the Pathfinder drive either. It's like a pseudo spore drive, isn't it? So yeah, I mean, this could, I mean, it's not going to be in another galaxy. But at that point, the complaint is almost that it is 6 hours and that's too far. It does make it seem like we are still at the center of it all. What, like humanity or the story? I mean, the story is like definitely at the center of things. Yeah. I don't know. I still think I'm going to be really underwhelmed by what we find inside. Like, it's almost either going to be it's nothing. It's just like it's basically literally just the message from the chase. But there isn't like any technology that would actually make sense, as we've established, like some sort of genetic engineering biological tech that would really be that revolutionary. Even bringing back the dead is like, that's a big deal, but that's not like the Breen have destroyed the Federation big deal, you know? And even then, there are a lot of ways we can do that. The Federation has consistently chosen just not to do it. If this tech is from before time or at all, it's right where yeah, I mean, it's not right where Earth is, because if it is supposed to be right next to like Deep Space Nine, that's like another quadrant. Although I think Earth is in the beta quadrant technically, and we just... Yeah, here's a funny thing that Voyager really warps your perspective on, is that almost every species on Voyager is actually from the beta quadrant. And they're always so big on getting back to the alpha quadrant. But not only is the Federation basically straddling the line, but even Earth, I think, most maps put Earth like, it's basically Greenwich. It is like the line that defines the alpha and beta quadrant. But I think the maps actually in the show tend to put it slightly over in the beta quadrant. It's funny. But like it's in our galaxy because the progenitors were our galaxy, right? I mean, we know there's life outside the galaxy because of the well, there's a few instances, but the most noticeably like synthetic Federation from Picard. It's just like life is evidently so rare it just evolves naturally once in each galaxy, sort of thing. Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, that Discovery never leaves the Milky Way. I mean, scientifically, you definitely would leave the Milky Way. Seasons 2, like 1, 2, 3... Well, okay, 2 gives them a reason. I've said this before. When they're trying to like, evade Section 31, just go to, like, Andromeda or something. But, yeah, I guess they always have a mission on screen. That would mean they never leave the Milky Way, but you definitely would leave the Milky Way scientifically. If for nothing else, just to check that, like, the laws of the universe are actually consistent, which is an assumption we make scientifically. We just assume the laws of the universe are the same everywhere, and they appear to be the same everywhere we can see. But if they were just like slightly different, like, you know, if gravity was slightly different 50,000 light years away, we probably wouldn't really notice. And so it'd be useful to just go and like to the other side of the universe and just measure gravity or something, you know. We're pretty confident it's the same everywhere, but you know. I don't even remember what the heck they're talking about here. Yeah, I don't know. It's an aggressive fineness. That's really what Discovery is. And we'll really talk. Next week will be the... Oh, yeah, here's another one. Is this effect just looks not that great. When they put the key into the slot there, it's not that great. But next week's going to be the real big analysis on, like, what Discovery was. You know, the series finale will really take a big overview of it, so I don't want to save too much for it here. But... I think the general consensus among the fandom, even a lot of people who really like Discovery, is just kind of like, yeah, Discovery's ending. You know, there's some stuff I'll miss. There's some stuff I won't. It's ending. It's never... As I said, when Discovery does well, unlike every other Star Trek, it never excels like a Darmok or an Inner Light or in the pale moonlight. It never impresses in a way that's, like, noteworthy. When it does well, and it honestly very rarely fails in a way that's noteworthy. It's just kind of like meh, or it doesn't really, it's like a little novice. There are exceptions, but, you know, controversial ones. It's just always kind of like there. And when it does well, it's because it had a lot of little bits come together well. Like, the individual episodes came together well to something greater than the sum of its parts, but still, honestly, not like, you know, a season of Deep Space Nine. I'm gonna challenge you, Jack, that I don't think at all that humanity is at the center of everything. I even think you could use this to build an active case that humanity is not at the center of everything. Yeah, I mean, Discovery is the only, like, human thing about this, is that Discovery's crew is still mostly human. But even then, I don't know. I think it's a weak argument. I don't know, I think Books had this weird arc going on where, like, he always feels like he has to be useful in doing something, which I feel is kind of coming out of nowhere. Maybe they would develop this more in season 6. Like, now that there's no couriers, now that the burn is solved or something, Book feels like he doesn't really have a thing to be doing. Maybe it's a part of the fact that he's not with Michael Burnham that's just not incorporated too well. I don't know. Adira was fine in a lot of these scenes. They still had a lot of that stumbliness. I'm just gonna say, did Ezri ever, like, stutter out of nerves? I'm pretty sure she probably didn't. Like, oh, Adira, what happened to you? What happened to Gray, for that matter? Where'd Gray go? Gray was there to, like, provide an interesting thing for Adira. They then had a whole season where they just they gave him a body, and that's kind of all that happened. And then this season they realized they don't have anything to do with him, so they just have him dump Adira and then never show up again. He's an interesting character. Is that what the Dreadnought looked like? Man, that's a bad angle from the Dreadnought. This would have been a hard Eagle Moss model to display, let me tell you that. Actually, can we, now that they're here, can we see the speed? I want to see the speed at which they pick up that artifact. Oh, no, this is when they... Oh, it's facing backwards. No, this is when they're talking about the exhaust port. Let me ask you, if the show was slower paced, would it be better or worse? It's not the pacing. There have been episodes with bad pacing. This, I think, being one of them. But it's not the pacing. It's the content. For example, what was the one where they went to Trill? I believe that was the one I was talking about, where the pacing was perfect for the kind of episode it wanted to be. It was fine. It was a slower episode. It still had enough going on. The problem was that I didn't care about any of the actual plots going on. It focused a lot on interpersonal relationships and, like, the characters, and I didn't give a shit about any one of the characters, because the first 2 seasons especially, but, like, in general, all the previous seasons kind of failed to really get me invested in any of them, with the exception of Saru once you introduced Tarina. And because, pacing is an important aspect of a story, but it's hardly the only story. You could have like a perfect story that's told at an agonizing pace, or you could have the perfect pace, just not a good story. I think I was going to save this, but I think a part of the problem is, Discovery, it's not controversial to say that Discovery has had a bit of a rough ride. Right? It's gone through serious change. It's gone through many showrunners, even before, they started, filming on it, before Kurtzman. But Discovery had a lot of criticism, and I think it's adapted to the criticism. It's tried to... You get a lot more of sort of the things that you would hear thrown out as criticism. You have episodes that are slower paced, or entire stories that are slower paced. This is at least an attempt at not being like the galaxy is at stake. It still is, but they advertise it like it wasn't. I noticed we seem to be getting more meetings. You get more of people bringing their expertise to the table. You get less of all of these meetings being Marvel-y quips and being a little more you can do some of this science, some of this analysis, some of this Star Trek. But having seen so many of these season 5 episodes, it almost feels like more of an imitation, or more of taking the admittedly non-specific criticism and applying it directly, because there's just something that doesn't feel quite there when you have these bridge crew scenes where everyone's talking about what do we do. There are multiple ones in this episode. How do we break into the Breen ship? What do we do? How do we get Burnham out of here? How do we do this stuff? And there's just something for me that's kind of hard to describe that feels like it's not clicking. And it almost feels like you're told Star Trek has these meetings of the crew getting together to solve the problem. They have these briefings and everything. And so you include briefing scenes, but there's just something that's not quite Star Trek-y that's clicking in a way that Strange New Worlds, I think, is doing it right. Even Picard, I'd hazard a guess from memory that season 3 would have those sort of Star Trek-y meetings. It almost feels like it's being canceled because it never quite really grasped some sort of core, some nebulous Star Trek-y core. It's there. I'm not gonna try and argue that Discovery isn't Star Trek, but it never really firmly got its hands on that, or at least how to put it into the show they're telling. And at this point, we have so many other shows that have managed that we don't really need Discovery anymore. It's all right, clearly this isn't really working. Let's just move over to something else. I've noticed we got a lot. Look, the Dreadnought would not be there to make it go faster if it was not in our backyard. Well, that's what I'm saying is the Dreadnought had transwarp, right? And transwarp could get Voyager, at least the transwarp corridors of the Borg, could get Voyager literally halfway across the galaxy in minutes. Transwarp, I think it came up a lot of times in Voyager where theoretically could get them home in a matter of days. 6 hours at transwarp is actually a massive area. If you say transwarp could get you through just anywhere in a quadrant in 6 hours, that's only a 25% chance that the progenitors were somewhere in that quadrant. I don't think it's unreasonable to say. And for all we know, there are multiple. We're going to learn that there's one of these in every quadrant, or equally spaced out. And there... Well, okay, so is another criticism, right? Star Trek would still do the thing where they'd have the Enterprise go vast distances. If you go watch The Chase, which, directly relates to this season, The Chase takes place over weeks, if not months. They just cut out the travel time when the Enterprise has to go travel halfway across the Federation. They're just like, Captain's log, it's been 6 months since we left, maybe not that long, but it's been like 3 weeks since we left Beta 4, and we are now arriving at so-and-so for the next clue. I'm not opposed to the Spore Drive allowing Discovery to pop around the galaxy. It's just, I will agree that sometimes they have to do some weird things to make any ally catch up. Most notably, Section 31. For God's sake, Discovery, transwarp just into intergalactic space. Halfway between here and Andromeda, they'll never get you. You have infinite time to solve your problem. See, I'm still bitter about Season 2. And there's way less WTF. Why do they just do that to make it go faster? And yeah, that's the other thing I think we're missing from some of the meetings and the solutions. They're not so much clever. They're more, you can't beam through shields. This is a problem we've established in Star Trek. So we've written the ship to have a hole in the shield you can beam through, but specifically only to some point. You can't beam the artifact out. You know, but you can also, like, it's hard without specific examples. You could argue, and I'm sure, you know, in 700 episodes, a lot of them were. And, like, to an extent, all Star Trek problems are kind of, you have a sci-fi problem, and you've invented a sci-fi solution for it. But once you know, get going for a while, like, especially Deep Space Nine Voyager, and you have more defined rules to your sci-fi technology, you can start applying logic and make solutions that aren't just sci-fi device A nullifies sci-fi problem B. You know, it's not just like Voyager when it's like, oh, well, we can beam a ship full of Klingons. We just choose not to because it's kind of dangerous. You know, Or when you do these things, you actually show problems that previous episodes have established. Like when Voyager is like going through the Empire that hates telepaths. So they keep all of their telepaths in like the transporter. But we've established the patterns degrade, so they have to like rematerialize them every so often. But even because that kind of goes against the rules, they show it's like, hey, if we keep doing this, like, they are getting sick, and we can't just keep beaming them in and out and in and out and in and out. And I think part of it is probably the setting. As I've said before, there aren't as many rules for the technology nowadays just because it's so new. Apparently, you can keep Locke's body in a transporter buffer, which I guess it's not like it's going to kill him, but I feel like there were other reasons, like there's physical deterioration, but I guess not anymore. Also, you probably should have done that sooner, but, you know, beside the point. And yeah, it's just something's not quite clicking. It does feel like imitation in places, or rather, you understand it, but maybe like 70%. I don't know, or maybe it's just me, but there's just the vibe of something not clicking at a core. Which still, I'm liking it, but I'm not upset to see Discovery go. I'm not pleased to see Discovery go either. It's just like a thing that happened. And as I said, that's where I'm not as in tune with the fan base as I once was, especially with modern. Honestly, r/Star Trek kind of annoys me because of how, I don't know if they still do this. They used to be really like ban happy about any sort of criticism, even like lighthearted or flat out jokes. And it's, so first off, you're now an incredibly biased source, but yeah. How do we keep them watching the show at every moment? Like, well, see, I feel like this episode doesn't do that, where it's like action, action, action. This is a slow episode, and plenty of the episodes were slow. I just don't personally care. I mean, something new is the way to go, right? It really was, because you have the damage of so many of these characters are underdeveloped. Reese is like the only one who's ever gotten anything significant to do on the bridge. I forgot about Detmer. She exists. But he that's like this season only. And It used to be true that you could name more employees of Quark's bar than you could Discovery Bridge crew. And that's not going away. Like, they were always underdeveloped. There's just kind of too much. We're too late in the game to have some of these problems be fixable. It's time. You can take some of the characters you want. You can throw Tilly in Academy. Not the one I would have chosen, but whatever. You could bring them back if you want for some Academy episodes. But this was the time to pass the torch. Speaking of Academy, we had to do this in the middle of the stream. We got some Academy news. First off, Holly Hunter, who I know is Miss Incredible, and you probably know as many other people, has been cast as like the commander of Starfleet. She's in charge of Starfleet Academy, which I thought was Tilly's job, but whatever. It's been a while. But what really annoys me, right, is that we've gotten a new synopsis, a teaser, what the show is about. The series will follow the adventures of a new class of Starfleet cadets as they come of age in one of the most legendary places in the galaxy. Star Trek Starfleet Academy introduces viewers to a young group of cadets who come together to pursue a common dream of hope and optimism. Under the watchful and demanding eyes of their instructors, they discover what it takes to become Starfleet officers as they navigate blossoming friendships, explosive rivalries, first loves, and a new enemy that threatens both the Academy and the Federation itself. That second paragraph, remove the reference to Star Trek Academy. Replace cadets with renegades, replace instructors with Janeway, and remove love. And I swear that was the synopsis we got of Prodigy. I'm like, why did you get rid of Prodigy just to do Prodigy again, but somewhere else? God. Also, I wonder how long this one will last. Like, okay, less cynically, it is, in theory, different. Yes, Dal and, what's-her-face, Gwen have got some... Oh my gosh, all my tabs have closed. They've got... Oh god, Chrome closed. I am still streaming. My streaming isn't depending on... So, like, Chrome just crashed on me. Yeah, but Dal and Gwen had some sort of romance thing going on. But Academy is catered to the more older, I think, like, young teen, thing. Cool, OBS recognized that. The young teen demographic. It's not just the same, but dang, that's an annoyingly similar synopsis to the one Prodigy got when you canceled it. There's my stream. There's my chat. They make more tech toys so they can sell tech toys like box ups. You know what? Actually, I wouldn't be surprised if Discovery's not selling toys. Not toys, but even merch. I've seen like a Discovery uniform. I don't think I've seen any merch. I'm sure you can get like phasers and stuff. Well, I've seen those like, $10,000 studio models. Yeah, no, you're right. There's not a lot of Star Trek. Actually, I literally today... you know what? Maybe this will be like a stream, maybe in between like TOS seasons or something. Literally today, like this morning, it is on sale. I bought the, not Telltale, what's it called? Star Trek Resurgence. I've never played it, but that's the, Star Trek Resurgence. It's the, like, post-Nemesis, not Telltale. If you don't know Telltale, it's like a narrative, story-driven, you get, like, some options. I don't know, Google Telltale. You know the Walking Dead game? It's like that. But apparently, I've heard it's very Telltale in its gameplay. It's maybe not the best game, but I've heard it's good Star Trek. And so, yeah, it was on sale. That's why I brought it up. How much does it cost? It's on Steam, which is new. And it's on sale. It's 20% off for $19 now. Or $23 for the Captain's Edition. It's the Captain's Edition. It doesn't say. Well, you could buy that. Yeah, there's a Prodigy game that sold poorly. Oh my god, it's not. But here's your conspiracy: is if this Prodigy game got negative reviews, and that's why they canceled Prodigy. I mean, Jaxel, it's not that the kids play with the toys, that the toys make a lot of money. That's, since, like, Star Wars, that's how you make money in entertainment. It's merchandising. As the great Yogurt once told us. Oh, yeah, also, I mean, I have, like, all but 6 Eaglemoss ships. I'm aware. I'm aware. Yeah, I don't think I'm getting those 6 ships. Yeah, not much to say. I mean, it's kind of weird. You had a lot of, like, Breen asking the Discovery crew questions, and then just idly standing around as the other 2 Oblivion-style... Ooh, 2 obscure references in 1 paragraph. Like, Oblivion-style sit there, unresponsive, and then eventually give a normal answer. Yeah, I mean, I really just don't have a lot to say. Which is, that's the other problem with Discovery. No word of mouth transmission whatsoever. Even, like, Discovery mega fans don't talk about Discovery. Like, what do you say? What do you say? I'm probably gonna go do Doctor Who for, like, 2 hours tomorrow, and I don't even know how I feel about this week's Doctor Who episode. Actually, there's a chance Doctor Who doesn't go an hour. That'll be an interesting one. Tell you what, you want a really interesting episode of television? Go watch 73 Yards from Doctor Who. Doctor Who was better this week. I don't know how to... I'm going to have to rank Doctor Who on 1 to 10 tomorrow, and I don't know. I have no idea. But yeah, I mean, next week, no more Discovery. Next week will be the end of Discovery. It'll be the first day of LGBT Pride Month because you're done with the Discovery phase. You've discovered that you're queer, and now it's time to embrace that. Pride Month. It's time to pride that. Of course I knew it was Pride Month. Some announcements, though. The week after Discovery, looks like I still got a watch-along scheduled. Nothing that following week. We're still doing Doctor Who, though. But yeah, we're just going back to TOS, and I'll probably stick Resurgence, or whatever it's called, in there at some point. Because I think that would be fun. Oh, hang on. Like these rugs. Oh, that's a private tab. My mom was offering rugs. I'm like, is that just me or all of my siblings? Yeah, we'll see next week. It'll probably be fine. Actually, I'd be surprised if it was really bad. I can't really be underwhelming. There's not enough build-up for it to be underwhelming. And, like, I'm already underwhelmed that the technology it's ill-defined. I mean, life itself, I don't know. We'll see. We'll find the real Discovery was the Prodigy we made along the... Oh, by the way, Prodigy, I learned, is not coming out in June. Because Netflix released its, like, June schedule, and there's no Prodigy in it. So, I don't know, it's done. It's out. Go learn... Honestly, if you want to watch Prodigy... as soon as possible, your best bet might just be to learn French and then go watch it on that French streaming service. Shout outs to, like, everyone keeping that under wrap. I have no idea what happens in Prodigy. I know you could go find out if you wanted to, like, obviously. Some people posted summaries under, like, spoilers I saw, but, shout outs, yeah, to keeping that under wrap. I hope it stays that way when Prodigy comes out. But apparently just being French is enough to dissuade, like, any article from writing about it, you know? Yeah, I think I will call it there. Tomorrow, Doctor Who 73 Yards. It'll be an interesting stream, I have no doubt. Next week, we'll get to finally say all the stuff I've been holding back. We'll get to talk about Discovery as a whole. And then you get the Gorn. You know what? Honestly, if there's anything to look forward to, it's the Gorn episode in 2 weeks, which I'm pretty sure is where we left off TOS. So with that, I will go ahead and wrap it up. I will say thank you all